Last year, through a grant through Texas Parks and Wildlife, we tested which types of erosion control blanket were most prone to snake entanglement. So we tested 3 different types, looking at kind of a natural core coconut woven mesh with where the mesh didn't have fixed corners. We tested this kind of harder polypropylene mesh, and then we also tested this polypropylene mesh that was comprised of 2 layers that had fused corners, but the mesh itself was fairly flimsy and very flexible. And what we found testing those 3 types of blankets is that the kind of the flimsy polypropylene mesh with fused corners, snakes are most prone to being entangled in that compared to the other 2. And we also did a series of field surveys looking at basically under natural conditions, are we seeing snakes entangled? And we were in kind of that same type of mesh, that polypropylene mesh with fused corners and kind of flimsy. We found 10 snakes entangled during our field surveys last year. So for this year, what we're doing is we're kind of taking this a step further. So we're asking kind of, we have 2 different objectives with this project. The first being, does installation method affect vulnerability or probability of snake entanglement in these erosion control blankets that we know are effective at entangling snakes? So we're basically setting up a similar experiment compared to last year, but we're burying the edge where we noticed a lot of snakes were becoming entangled. So basically, this blanket has 2 layers to it, and what we were noticing is that with that kind of layer up and exposed, when snakes hit it, they go in between those layers, and when they try and pop out, that's where they're becoming entangled. So we're testing we have 2 different treatments in this experiment. One where the edge of the blanket is buried, and the other one where it's left exposed. Because we noticed kind of under these field conditions during our survey, a lot of times that blanket was never buried. It was exposed as well. So what we're finding right now, kind of our preliminary results, is that basically installation method does matter. So if you leave that edge unburied, a lot of times snakes are becoming entangled in the treatment with that unburied edge compared to when it is buried. So we're still working through the data and still conducting experiments, but hopefully by the end of the summer we'll have a definitive answer once we run the analysis. So that's one part that we're doing. The other part is, we've only tested 3 types of blankets total, but Texas Department of Transportation has what's known as an approved products list. And so to get on that approved products list, the erosion control blanket must be effective in reducing soil loss and promoting vegetation growth. So they don't consider necessarily, does this erosion control product pose a risk to wildlife? But so there's only 2 criteria to get on that list, and right now we're finding close to 130 or 140 approved products on that list, and they can vary from erosion control blankets to spray-on mulches to everything in between. So right now what the students are working on is trying to quantify the characteristics, or basically the attributes of those different erosion control products, with the idea of trying to figure out, okay, what's actually out there, what attributes do these products have, and if we need to install something more wildlife friendly, can we basically come up with a list or a subset of things that may be more wildlife friendly in terms of maybe not having mesh with fused corners and comprised of polypropylene, for example. So we're still working through that as well. We're going to start working through the data next week. But we're looking at things like, some of the attributes we're looking at are, does the product have mesh or not? What size are the mesh openings? What's the mesh comprised of? Is it comprised of plastic or coconut fibers or something else? How long does that blanket persist on the landscape? All these kind of different attributes are going to be important to predict. All right, does this blanket pose a risk or not to wildlife based off of kind of their characteristics. So with the results from this research project, we really hope to try and mitigate against wildlife mortality, snakes and other animals as well. And we're going to keep you updated on basically what we're finding. We're halfway through the field season, so we should have some results, more definitive results, towards the end of the summer.